Great. So we're all unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're so excited. I'm particularly excited because I've gotten to reach out to this guest and help prepare him for what he's getting into with the JemCon universe and Garth as well. We've been talking with Barry, but Barry Harman's here. It's just a JemCon first timer, and he wrote all the lyrics to all the songs except for the Gem theme, which Anne wrote obviously, and a couple other like jingles, but Barry wrote the lyrics to the songs that we love. So the things we were talking about before and the things we always talk about. And we're going to do a great format today where Garth's going to kind of present a situation. We'll play a clip and then Garth will ask Barry a question about it for some of the session. And we're going to leave lots of time for Q&A at the end. And we also have a exclusive. Barry's going to premiere here for the first time a song from a new musical that he's working on that he thinks is the most Gem-like song that he's done since Gem. So you're going to hear another Gem song that you've never heard before today from Barry, and we encourage you guys to get the word out about that. We'll put the YouTube and the link in the chat and in the emails afterwards, so you guys can really go and watch it over and over, do your homages to it, whatever you want to do. Put your Gem animation behind it, and make it really amplify the song that he's got. We've heard it, and it's amazing. So it's a real treat you're in for a little later in the session, but. And we'll make sure that we have time for you guys to ask Barry some questions. But with that said, I want to turn it over to Garth to give us the introductions and start the interview.
Well, thank you so much. So a lot of us here at JemCon believe that music is magic. And I would just like to thank, first off, thank you, Barry, for helping craft an iconic catalog of music for Gem and the Holograms. You have an impressive career as a writer, lyricist, and director. And your work includes the Tony-nominated Broadway musical Romance, classic TV shows like All in the Family and The Jeffersons, and even children's classics like The Great Space Coaster, My Little Pony, and Gem. So can you tell us how your career got started and how that led up to Gem?
Yeah, my first job was writing for prime time, actually. Came out of college and didn't know better. And I read in Variety, which is showbiz paper at the time, that Carol Burnett was firing the writers on her variety show. And so I said, oh, there must be jobs. So I sat down, I wrote some sketches, I sent them in, and I did what you're not supposed to do with show business. I got a job out of it. And I started my career without really any problem. And I've been working ever since. Too long. So basically that. As for how I got into children's television, I wasn't wild about living in California at the time. It was a very different vibe from, I had just come out of the 60s and 70s, early radical stuff that was going on campuses. And California was really sort of laid back at that time. And so eventually I came back to New York, which is where I'm from. And I decided to get into children's television because I was always attracted to the arena. And I was right, because writing for puppets and animation is a lot more fun than writing for prime time, actually. Less pressure, and doesn't pay as well, but it's a lot of fun. And in terms of this specific job, I started working by accident for Griffin Bacall. My partner at the time sent in my resume without my knowing it. He'd seen something in the paper and said they were looking for a screenwriter. And they called me up. I had no idea what it was about. And they said, oh, you have a meeting tomorrow with Joe Bacall. I said, who is Joe Bacall? And they said, well, just come to the meeting. We'll tell you about it. I went and talked to him, and I got that screenwriting assignment. Very soon after that, they would start a show called The Great Space Coaster, which some of you may know. I was told the show at the time. And I started writing for them. I started doing lyrics for them, which I was happy about because I wanted to be paid for writing lyrics. I just started. And basically, they hired me for the next 22 years, I think it was, to write basically all the lyrics of all the shows from Sunbow, My Little Pony, and all those kind of shows for many, many years. So that's how, and Gem was just one of many shows. My attorney at the time called me up and said, I just got you a job from Sunbow. You're doing 186 songs, they thought, because there was 3 per episode. They knew it was going to be 65 episodes. So it was a big job. And we did it very, very quickly, which is why my disclaimer comes now, because this happened 40 years ago. So when you ask me about a specific line about a lyric, the odds I'm going to have to look it up and tell you. Okay, next question.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that is so good. Well, I was going to say, with your work on Carol Burnett, you've definitely had experience with female icons. So I want to ask, what was it like crafting personas for Gem and Pizzazz, who are 2 distinctly different types of female icons?
Well, the first thing that hit me is that Pizzazz was more fun because naughty girls are always a little more fun to write for. You know, after a while, we got into Erica and Jem's character, and she sometimes had a little more moxie that she had in the beginning, that was allowed to, which I liked it as well because she was the center of the series. You know, and we were crafting it at the same time as it was being done. I mean, a lot of times the way it worked is I would get only story outlines that Christy had written before she even wrote the script, because we had to start early on to get the videos done. They were more involved in terms of the animation, so they try to get those done separately. So it was sort of a process of, over time, learning who these characters were as we went through the process of writing. So they developed like anything else.
And also, with Jem and Pizzazz being the lead characters, there were also a lot of diverse background characters, like the Starlight Girls, Jackie Benton. So what was it like trying to get the voices down for those characters as well?
Basically, it's the same way I approach writing for anybody. I mean, you try to understand where they're coming from, and who they are and what they might say in that situation. I mean, that's basically what writers do. Sometimes we hit it on the nose, and sometimes I'm not so sure we're right on hitting the nail right away. But it's a process, and I think some of the characters did develop. Sometimes I think characters developed because there was a great script for one of them, or a song that really was responded to, which is why they ended up repeating some of those songs. So it's a process, right? Writing is just writing and rewriting until you get it right.
That sounds exactly the way you do it. And in a previous interview, you mentioned the writing process being somewhat collaborative, and that the story writers outlined the idea for the song and suggested titles you may or may not use. And there was an emphasis on the physical action because of the videos that were being made for the songs. So can you give us more background on that experience?
Well, definitely, as I began to see the videos, I saw that what made the songs interesting to watch was when I provided images that the animators could put on screen. So if I referred to the moon or referred to whatever, there was a reason for it, because the animators then had something to do. If you're just sort of standing there and going, love is great, there's not really much to put on screen. So you try to give them a sort of a story in your head about what might be there. The best ones were when they went beyond what I had thought of and, took off from an image and then went into something else. That's the fun of animation, how far you can go with it. There was an early part to that question, which I didn't answer. You were asking me about.
So that sometimes they would give you the outline of the story, a title you may or may not use.
Right. Within the framework of the story that we would get, the story outline, there was usually a song suggestion, and sometimes they were the ones that Christy had suggested, I believe, and sometimes they were changed, and Joe McCall or whoever was editing the show at that time would come up with a different idea. My issue was that I had to give something that was singable, because sometimes really great lines don't always sing well. It's not easy for the singer to sing, so I would try to come up with something that was a little easier to sing, or didn't have like a diphthong in it or something like that. Certain titles or certain ideas they really wanted. The Click Clash song, for instance, we had to use Click and Clash, and we knew that. That was the first time we did those kind of songs. But generally, they gave me a pretty wide berth in terms of that. And sometimes Anne correctly would, I would get a note saying, it's too long, or the main line is too long, we got to shorten it, and so we would, because basically the music has to come first. If the music is working, the lyric will work if you're good at it.
Very good. And speaking of Anne, she actually mentioned at a previous JemCon that in the early days the songs were very short, and she asked for more time for the song to be more developed. So how did that affect your writing process?
Well, it made it easier, to be quite honest, because when you're writing a song, you want to sort of develop it and go from an idea and then develop that idea. When it was so short, it was hard to get across anything but basically the hook of the song. One of the early songs. Oh God, what's the very first song? Come on, Jen fans, you know this.
Oh yeah, only the beginning.
Yeah, only the beginning. So basically, I had about 5 seconds.
Out of my way.
Thank you. You're out of my way, which is, repeated quite a lot. So we had only a certain amount of time to get the idea across. When it was a little longer, we could develop the idea a little more and go off in different directions. And also, I think, the whole process, again, developed over time. So when they started seeing the videos, they started saying, well, the more images we get, the better. The more, we want to switch something. Sometimes Anne would take what I thought was going to be the chorus, and she would make that the bridge and stuff. I mean, whatever made a good song is really what developed. And they were fun to do on that basis, but I sometimes was totally surprised by what we would come back with, either visually or even what the song itself would sound like. which was always a delight. I always like it better when they take my work and then go someplace I never imagined.
Very good stuff. And sometimes in the songs there would be there were vocal riffs that weren't lyrical, but more of an woo or a sassy ha, from Ellen Bernfeld, who's here with us today. So we have a couple of examples that we're going to play. So that we have Universal Appeal, I believe, and Jazz Has. So we'll play those, and then on the other side of that, I'll ask you a little bit more about that process.
Okay.
So I think we have the clips ready to go, and we'll see. Yep, there we go.
Okay, we stop.
Jazz has the sound of St. Louis blues. Yes, jazz has razzmatazz. Jazz gets you tapping your shoes. That's what jazz has.
That's a perfect example of how trippy some of those videos could be with the tap dancing notes. So, but the question I have is, was there a process to leave room for the singers to add those riffs? Because you wouldn't necessarily, write out the ha or the ooh.
You would almost never write those as that. That's be the talent of the artist who comes to record, and they have the ability to do that. So that's totally to the singers. What you do if you're a decent writer or a lyricist writer is you try to get lines with ends on certain sounds, which make it easier for them to riff. Now, sometimes they'll go away from those sounds, but if there's an A and they want to do that, or an ooh, hopefully, they can do something with it. And that's really how it works. I mean, you try to create songs where the singer can open up if they have the ability to do that. And often, again, they take you places where you don't imagine. The first one that you showed, Universal Appeal, was a perfect example of, and I remember doing this, giving them a visual, the eclipse of the sun and everything else, which they made pretty interesting. That was an example of when we really started to try to make the videos as interesting as we possibly could visually. Because it was a whole different idea that, when they first told me we could have videos, I mean, I knew what videos were. It started like 4 years before the show, but I couldn't imagine how they were going to do them with the show until I saw the first one. And then I said, well, we could do better than this. And they got much better, I think, as they went along. The artist has got much braver. And in the same way that they would riff on my ideas, that's what the singers did. They riffed on our ideas. That's when you talk about collaboration. You have great singers, you get great songs. That's how it works.
And I think
so I didn't write that. I can't take credit for it, but I'm delighted that they were able to riff on my stuff.
But I think that speaks to the level of talent involved, because all of the pieces came together so well, and it was that ability for people to be able to riff like that off of the work that was being done. And one of the other things I noticed too, speaking of Universal Appeal, some of the songs are very feminist, including "Designing Women" by the Misfits, and I believe we have a clip of that too. Because there's two lines that I want to play clips from: "Designing Women" and "You'll Never Win My Love." And I think we have those ready.
We have those, yep. Sean's going to pull them up.
I know girls who sit home all day, watching their lives just fritter away, flipping coupons, sniffing the dial. But me, girl, that ain't my style. I'm a designing woman, I've got what it takes. I'm a designing woman, I make my own breaks. I'm a designing woman, designing woman, and I've got the signs on you. I got what it takes to make my plans come true.
those are two fabulous examples of kind of the empowerment you would see from two different perspectives from both Jem and Pizzazz. And especially the line, "If you abuse me, you'll only lose me." That is pretty powerful for a kids show. That is just getting into some stuff that still resonates. That's something that we still have, we have those themes today as adults. So where did the inspiration for those themes come from in the writing process?
Okay, this is interesting because I hadn't really connected with it until I was rewatching this with you. I am a feminist, but my mom basically was going for a career when she was in the 1950s when I was a kid. It caused a lot of dissension between my parents. My parents eventually divorced over it. And writing that basically was my mom, who wanted to do more than just be a homemaker. And she did. She was in show business as a sort of booking agent. But she worked very hard, and she was actually one of the first women ever inducted into the Friars Club in New York. And she did it all her life. But basically, that's what you're seeing reflected is basically the son of a woman who wanted a career at a time in the 50s, way before everybody's time here, when women did not have jobs generally. And not only was it a job, but it was in a glamour industry. But my mother wanted that out of her life, and she went for it. So in a way, that's where we bring our own consciousness into what we're writing. And the idea of a woman wanting that, it was easy to write an empowered song. It's too bad that it was for the villainous character.
So your mom was the designing woman you're talking about.
At a certain level, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is amazing, and that is so cool to see how the real life influences, were able to be incorporated into the music we all love to this day. Mm-hmm. So that, and speaking of Beauty and the Beast, that episode is that's wild because it's like the Jem rock opera, the Beauty and the Rock Promoter, and there were other Broadway themes too, like Broadway Magic was in one of the episodes, and I think we have clips of that as well.
There were definitely certain shows about that. I would just actually reminded of another song we didn't discuss last time, which is I think Dance and
Music and Dance.
Song and Dance, but it involved dance with a strong male dancer, which was sort of nice to see. And I had actually asked them to put that in, that it would be sort of nice to see men dancing and not the typical depiction of ballet dancers, which I thought they did a pretty good job on in that moment.
That's great. You remember that. That's Music and Dance is the name of the song, Barry, and they played it at the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode. It was such a strong song. They put it both places.
Yeah.
Really pulled the episode together. So yeah, you were telling us earlier about the Broadway stuff that John's about to play, and Broadway wasn't really cool at the time in the 80s. We thought it was cool to see the bit, but as an adult, Broadway wasn't really a cool place to be, right?
Yeah, well, just everybody was sort of looking down on it. There were no more movie musicals at that time, and the music also had not kept up with what was going on in the world of recording. They weren't putting songs like Jem sings on the stage very often. Occasionally a show like Hair would break through, but generally it was older stuff, older writers still around writing until like Stephen Sondheim sort of chased out a little. And then of course, today with Lin-Manuel Miranda with Hamilton and the guys who wrote Dear Evan Hansen, now basically it's come full circle. It used to be that songs came out of Broadway musicals in the 50s and the 40s. All the hit songs came from there. Not all, but quite a few. And we're starting to see that again now, which is terrific.
Great. So we're going to show a clip now from Broadway Magic, the Jem Broadway musical, and then maybe the one from the West End production of Beauty and the Rock Promoter. So John, you have that queued up? I think that's it. Yeah, maybe. I think that's the clip. So yeah. So what did you think of that? How they portrayed Broadway Magic in the cartoon?
It was good. I wish that you saw. I'm just looking at her dress, which I thought was actually terrific.
Yeah,
I wish that they had that kind of stuff on Broadway at that time. I'm glad they did that in terms of interesting people in theater. Kids who might not have known about theater might look into it more. That's something we try to do, sort of and every show I did with Griffin McCall, Sunbow, not only pro-social themes, but just sort of exposing the kids who are watching to a different world than they might know growing up outside of, a metropolitan area. So there were kids who developed an interest in Broadway because seeing it depicted elsewhere.
Yeah, seeing that those careers were possible, that being a fashion designer was possible, being a backstage person was possible, being like Rio was like a road manager kind of person. So that kind of stuff, we saw that for the first time, I think,
right.
as adult career possibilities in there. Yeah. Garth, just to go off script a little bit, I want to give Barry a chance to talk about his own Tony-nominated musical, Romance, and about that experience. And that was, what year was that you were nominated for those Tonys?
It was 88 or 89, I'm not sure which one it was, a while ago. But it was a show that I had written with one of my collaborators, Keith Herman. We actually just wrote it as really an audition piece because it's 2 one-act pieces and small purposely. We know it'd be easy to get produced. And we did it off Broadway. People came down, we got great reviews on it, and they moved it to Broadway, which we were surprised. What's been terrific has been, it's been produced all over the world now. What's really interesting is that it was 2 years ago, the guy who directed it, I directed it on Broadway, but the guy who directed it in the West End called me up and said, what would you think about a same-sex version of the piece? And when I wrote it, it's based on a story about a man and a woman. And I said, if it'll work, let's look at the script and see if it did. And we ended up changing, I think, about 8 lines. And basically it was the exact same piece, except it was, one's a period piece that takes place in Vienna, and the second one is contemporary on the Hamptons. But that's all we had to change, like 8 lines.
Just change the pronouns around and change a few lines, and it all works.
But what was interesting is that, and we had no idea at the time we started doing it, but it takes place in Vienna, but actually Vienna at the time, with turn of the century, was sort of a hotbed for homosexual activity. And in fact, the name of the female protagonist is Josephine Weniger. And Weniger was actually the big gay bar in Vienna at the turn of the century. So it was really sort of mind-blowing. We won a couple of awards with it, and it was went really well. But I was sort of shocked when I saw it, because you sort of forget about that it's a same-sex version. But basically, romance and love, it's across the board, as we know. And so it was interesting to revisit a piece for me and see that basically, the gender switch meant very little. We're hoping to do a version which will be all female, because that would also be interesting. We haven't gotten producers for that yet, but we're hoping to do that someday too. So just finishing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And on the side note, Damon Bowling, who's on the call, he played the Scott Bakula role in high school.
Actually, at ASU, Arizona State University.
Oh, at ASU. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Barry saw. He said it was kind of a little mature themes wise for high school. I misremembered that, Damon, but I didn't know if you wanted to grace us with a few bars.
I definitely, I'll send you a clip. I can't do that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for that sidebar, Garth.
What's interesting is about the role that David played. Scott Bakula played it on Broadway, and he was sort of had gained a little weight because he had been working for a while. David, you could probably underscore this, but it's a very big role, and he lost 30 pounds in the course of the first 6 weeks of the run because it's so difficult. You're running around and changing costume, at least in our version. It's sort of funny. Okay.
High cardio role. Garth, back to you for the sorry for that sidebar.
No, that was a wonderful sidebar. And I was going to say, speaking of romance, Jem was always cheating on herself. So I was going to say, one of the songs that, everyone, I believe, this line stood out to them, and I think it stood out more as an adult than when we were kids. But Who Is He Kissing? I believe we have a clip for that we can play.
Who is he kissing? Is it me? Or is he making love to a fantasy?
Who indeed? So my question is, the line, "Is he making love to a fantasy?" That really jumps out. It's like, oh, that's kind of mature for a kids show. So I was going to ask about that, and just how did you approach balancing the occasional adult themes of Gem within the constraints of children's entertainment?
Well, there were advisors to the show who read these things and decided if it were appropriate for kids. I mean, making love is wooing as far as I'm concerned, and we weren't really talking about the sex act. That's how we approached it, and I think that's what the video does. People have pointed out that a lot of people think it does mean the sex act, and that's how we were going for. So I guess someone who is a little more specific might have asked me to take it out, but I don't remember having any issue about that line until years later when people brought it up to me in terms of fans and stuff like that. But it also was, the show was more adult, let's be honest, than almost any kid show at the time. You basically, I think it was in the first episode that Pizzazz tries to run them off the cliff. I mean, there was stuff going on that you didn't see at a typical kid show, which is why at first to be quite honest, I wasn't quite sure what we were going for with the show. I was interested in the two rock groups. I thought that would be fun, but there's a lot of antagonism between the women, and I wasn't sure where we were going. Eventually, the themes that were developed were terrific. You really get into some things that. Which is why I think the show remained popular. Some of the things we talked about in our prep session. I think one of the reasons that it's been so popular with kids who were growing up at that time is that we're all hiding something at that age. If you have any kind of relationship with somebody, do they really see the real me? Do they know who I really am? Or if they knew who I really am, are they going to accept me? And I think that's so much of what the pull of the show was, in addition to all the glamour and the costumes and all that kind of stuff, and the songs, of course. But that the undercurrent of that was much stronger than I realized when we first began. And over the years, I've seen it. I mean, I've gotten letters over the years, and thank you for anybody who sent me a letter over the years, because I'm assuming some of you were out there. Thanking me and the other writers for the show because it meant so much to them as kids. That they sort of felt like they were seeing themselves somehow, or their issues depicted in a kid show that they had not seen before. And those things are tremendously rewarding to writers, much more for me than getting awards and stuff like that. I mean, when you hear that you've touched somebody's life, it means something. And so I'm glad that the show is able to. I've had that with other pieces that I've done. But it's nice to know that we touch people that way. And obviously we did. How many years is it since Gem? Is it almost 40 now? Since Gem was
35, 36. Yeah. It's been a while.
Amazing.
You mentioned on the earlier call, you remember the name of someone, Davide. Davide's here today. A letter that Davide wrote to you that, okay. Davide, I don't know if you want to say anything while you have a chance here, in case we don't get to you later, but you wrote a letter to Barry and it meant a lot to him.
I did. See there?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Okay. You wrote, Barry talked about a letter that you wrote him at some point in your life.
Yeah, I did. Hi, Barry, by the way. It's nice to see you. But, yeah, I mean, I told him, how Gem was part of very, very delicate parts of my life, and probably of the lives of most of us, especially the switching between elementary to middle school, those strange years. And it was really my happy place. And then, living in Italy, I learned English literally on your words. That's what gave me the drive to learn this language. I wanted to know what they said, what they sang, what it mean. And now I made a job out of it, translating, foreign American shows and movies in Italian. So I will be extremely grateful to you, to Anne, to Ford, and mainly Gem music, really shaped my life. So yeah, that's it. And probably many of us have, music is like a constant in all the conversation we have this weekend. Music is something that really, really stuck to most of us, and that's what kept us coming through the years. Because music is universal. Music is magic. Music is it doesn't have any age, and that's special.
When you're writing, you don't always think about what the effect is going to be. I began doing some children's television with Nickelodeon early on when they first were coming out with. When Nickelodeon first started, one of the first shows, a show called The Leg Was Window, was a puppet show. But the head of the network would sit there and shake literally, because she said, I know that I'm basically affecting all these kids' minds. You know, and the responsibility that she felt came with that was like, oh, you know, almost totally wigged her out. We don't always think about that as artists, about who is this going to touch and how will it touch them. When it's a positive thing, and hopefully most of the time it is, it's incredibly rewarding. It's much better than whatever you get money-wise, and it's better than awards and everything if you win those. I mean, knowing you touch people is really why you go into this business. So when I see all these faces, it's very rewarding to me.
Thank you. We're your children, basically. Thank you, Davide, for bringing that up. Thank you for coming off mute for that.
And thank you for the letter, David.
Well, I'm glad two things come up that tie into my next two questions, because you mentioned pizzazz almost driving Jem off a cliff, which was a frequent theme. So I'm going to start with that question. We actually didn't discover until the 2004 Jem DVDs came out. There was an alternate version of the Misfit song, I Am a Giant, and I believe we have a clip of that ready to go.
Gonna cut you down to size. Gonna make you realize. Like a comet on the rise. No one can stop me, nothing can stop me. I am 20 stories tall. I am a giant, towering above it all. Strong and defiant. I am a giant.
So the interesting thing about that song is that on the 2004 DVDs, it included the line, I'm gonna crush you to the ground. And then the version that aired on TV was, I'm the biggest star in town. So my question is, do you remember any instances where you had to go back and change the lyrics to any Jem songs?
There were definitely, you know, notes given, and sometimes there may be where they all of a sudden came up with an idea, a concept for the video that they wanted me to include that I hadn't included originally. Occasionally I might go too far about it in some way, or it was too violent, I guess, maybe. And we also, there were songs that were reused, as you know. And that was really more of a financial decision than anything else, because we got paid per song. So if they could actually reuse the song in an episode, it means the songwriters didn't get paid for that song, depending on your contract. But there were definitely moments like that. I don't remember the particular songs, but we definitely had moments where we had to refashion something.
And speaking of the resonance of the songs, this ties back into how much kids were resonating with the music. And there was a beautiful, heartbreaking song about drug abuse or drug addiction, Laura Holloway, Alone Again. And I believe we have that song as a clip as well.
Looking in the mirror, I don't like what I see. I'm not the person I'd hoped I would be. Always feels like people are laughing at me. Alone again, with just my song. Alone again, which is right where I belong. What good is it to fight it? Just accept it and amen. It's like every other time. I'm alone again, all alone. Again, alone again, all alone again, alone again.
So my question to that, and that still hits you in the feels. It packed the wallop. So, thank you to Anne for all that music too. The lyrics and the music, they go together really. They make an impression wherever they go. So I was gonna say, what do you remember about writing the more emotional songs and the struggles that the characters were going through in an episode like that?
Well, that's what you hope for, to be quite honest. The more problems there were, the more there was to write about. The harder songs for me to write were when Jem was basically expressing a more, global communal thing, joining hands and kumbaya kind of stuff. Those are harder to make interesting when you especially had to write so many of those. So when a character had an issue, immediately you want to dive in and try to feel how that character feels and try to depict that. And it's not just the lyricist, it's the composer. It's the artist who's singing the song, and it's also the people who are animating it. I mean, basically, all of us are given more to hold on to. And in the same way that Christy, in terms of writing a scenario and the script, and the writers who wrote episodes, it's the platform from which we then build on. And that's what, when a show works, that's what it is. I mean, basically everybody contributes to that platform. If there's a weak element in it, it'll come crashing down. I think Jem was very lucky in that had really strong people working on it. And I think as we got into it more, we started feeling a little more responsible because there were more socially conscious issues that were being discussed. And so you try to bring that to the table as well. And I guess that's why it still resonates.
Lightning in a bottle. It really was. It's very special. And now I don't want to be a misfit with the next question, but I was going to ask, there was a soundtrack released to promote the 2015 Jem movie, and it was inspired by the song, so used the same song titles and snippets of your lyrics. So were you consulted about that, or approached or involved in any way with that soundtrack that came out?
I was not consulted. I don't think any of the writers were, as far as I know. But I've been in this business for a very long time, and since I've been writing since I graduated college professionally. It's just typical of the way the industry works. I mean, basically, the director, the people who were doing the movie, they got the rights to the idea and they ran with it. I wasn't particularly fond of where they ran with it and took it. And I think there could have been a much better movie than what they made. But there's not much we could do about it. And, I've had that happen with other projects, and most people who've been in the business have had that. I mean, I've had TV series and episodes and stuff that, because of different things that happen in the industry, things change in the course of production. In All the Family, when I was writing for All the Family, the head artist, Carol O'Connor, who played Archie Bunker, had his own ideas about what the script should say. And often, you'd get tremendous reaction from the producers after you handed the script, and then you went and saw the script and said, "Oh yeah, he wanted to change that line. He didn't like that idea." It's just part of the business. And again, it's a collaborative effort. So I was sorry the Jem movie wasn't better. That's all.
Well, on a lighter note, I wanted to ask you about some of the fun and quirky songs of the series. I was going to say, I believe we have some clips of those, because there were songs like Fun to Be Scared, Misfits in Hawaii, and K-Jem, Taking a Train. So I think we have some clips of those ones if we want to cue those up.
We didn't know if we'd get to this, Garth, but we could talk about it generally. I know.
Okay, yeah, know these songs. We're good.
Yeah, we didn't know how much time we'd have, but Barry, I remember on the pre-call we talked about one of your favorite songs and funnest songs to write was Misfits in Hawaii. Yeah, and I didn't really. Yeah,
that's Barry Harman at some of his campiest. The gay man, I embraced the chance to do that.
7 tropical diseases, right?
It's some of the songs were meant to be funny, and we had fun with them. I just, Misfits in Hawaii just added like a funny title, and we just sort of made it as silly as we could. Yeah.
Oh, that's fabulous. And also, one of the other questions I had was the songs for groups, because a lot of times there were multiple team ups. Like sometimes there'd be songs with Misfits and Jem, or all 3 groups together. So were those more difficult to write, getting all of those voices captured in one song?
It was difficult to write in the beginning because they were so short. I remember the Click Clash number, to get the idea of the 2 different groups and everything else till we put it together lyrically. And then I'm sure it was hard for Anne, to go from one to, we had to figure out how to do that. Then it was successful, and we repeated that formula, as I remember, a couple of times. I don't remember how many times, but we had those kind of songs where both groups were represented, which I thought was, from an artistic standpoint, a worthy enterprise. When they were too short, though, it was sometimes hard to figure out how to say what you needed to say and jump back and forth between it. But they're popular, I know, so I guess we did okay with them.
We do have a clip for one of those, if you want to cue it up, John, the one that involved all 3 bands, and we'll play that, and then we'll talk on the other side of it.
Now the fences are mended now, the arguments ended now, we're getting underway. Hey, 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 now we've got the right setup now,
I would say that's Anne being as her most artful in terms of being able to jump from one to another and still make it work for all three groups. Less so than a lyric, which is fairly straightforward. There's Anne. It's the ability to do that and still encompass the three sounds, which were distinct, is an example of artistry that you're listening to. I can't take too much credit for that. I think Anne gets it. Is that Anne? Yeah, I think that is.
But yeah, I was going to say that's a great song to lead into the next question, because those high notes made a lot of us gay. No, I'm just kidding. but really, I was going to say a lot of Jem fans identify as LGBT, and while anything overtly gay would probably be forbidden, some of the songs still had what seemed like a little bit of a wink to the community. There's two songs in particular. I believe we have the clips for the band's breakup with Kimber and Stormer. So we have Bad Influence and Let Me Be by the Stingers.
We have Let Me Be. We have Let Me Be. So
okay, well, and we'll let that be.
Let that be.
There's room to grow and love to show. We'll make it you and me. All I ask of you is let me be. Let me grow, let me show you more of what I know. Let me fly, let me touch your heart and make you cry.
So yeah, so that ending line right there, that is very like, we are who we are. Like, let me be, can't you see? It's very I am what I am. And he's got some baubles and bangles with all that fishnets going on. And then also Bad Influence with Kimber and Stormer has a line, she'll break your heart in two, which seems a little more intense than just a regular, like, oh, they're just collaborating on music together. So was that ever consciously or unconsciously part of the writing process
I was not trying to deal with the characters if they were not, whether they were gay or not, because I didn't think at that time that was my job. But the people at Griffin McCall, Sunvo, knew my partner for many years. In addition, later on, I became friends with Steve Hassenfeld. I don't know whether the group knows that, but he was one of Hasbro. Hasbro is about two brothers who own that firm. And Steve was gay and died of AIDS, actually, unfortunately. And I met him after I had begun working for Sun, doing lyrics for them. But just a little more than acquaintances, but not, I would say, best friends. But I'm gay, and if it filtered through my consciousness, of course, you're going to see it in the lyrics. Was I overtly writing? No, I was writing for the characters, which is what our job is. Were the two young girls moving toward that? Very possibly, but it was not discussed in story meetings, at least with me. So, if it's detected, yeah, it's there because it's part of who the writer was. It is I guess the answer. And I've written definitely characters who were gay, and then it would be overt that way, but it wasn't. Again, we're on the cusp of it's preteen. When is it appropriate to start discussing sexuality and sexual issues? Now they do it a lot earlier. At that time, there's the 80s. I couldn't get married until like about 8 or 9 years ago. So it's taken a time for the world to catch up. If Jem contributed to that, I'm delighted, but it wasn't overt on my part.
But I do have to mention, I'm going to sidebar slightly to mention something that you were part of that was very iconic. You wrote one of the groundbreaking episodes of All in the Family. I have my TV guide right here, considered one of the greatest shows of all time. So I was going to say, you wrote the episode Cousin Liz, and I would love if you could tell us a little bit about that episode and the process of writing it.
Interesting. Okay. It came about basically when I walked into a gay bar the first time when I was 21 years old, and I was really, really nervous. And the first guy that I talked to was coming there for the first time after his partner of several years had passed away in a freak accident in the hospital. It's the first guy I ever talked to, and he's telling me the story about what had happened. And the story was that the parents of his partner, who did not know he was gay, had come and taken all his stuff away after he died. They had a lot of joint stuff that they owned together. But because he wasn't out and the parents were grief-stricken, he didn't say anything. And that was the story that I was told the first night at Gay Bar. That guy went on to become a really good friend of mine. He passed away because of the 9/11. He wasn't in one of the buildings, but he ingested a lot of the stuff from there. And a year later, he passed away. He was one of my best friends. Wonderful man. We changed the sex when we went to pitch it to All in the Family. The response was at the time, lesbians are not funny. And we went back with the story about 4 or 5 times until we finally got to Norman Lear, who loved the story and insisted that they do the script. What's interesting about the story is that it's about a school teacher who's lost her partner, and Archie needed to come and visit, and they find out that the woman and their cousin was gay. The deceased cousin was gay. Norman Lear ran that episode the night before an election that in which there was a proposition on the ballot in which homosexuals were going to be barred from teaching in California. And they ran it the night before, and the proposition, which was supposed to pass, was defeated. So I feel like the most political thing I've ever been involved in. I'm delighted about that. There's a couple of books about stuff that you can't do on television. A guy named Alan Neworth, a friend of mine, has written books about stuff like this. It's in that book. But it's the power of television, where you could do something like that. So All in the Family, of course, was groundbreaking in so many ways. But that was another one. And this was many, many years, guys, before Ellen. Way, way, way before Ellen. Ellen was in the 90s. This was in 70, I think it's 78. And we won the Emmy for that show. So.
That's incredible. And just thank you so much for sharing that history with us too, because just thank you for helping move the culture forward with, you know, putting your own neck on the line to get a story like that produced. So just thank you so much. That is incredible.
You do what you think you should be doing, you know, for your fellow man, I guess, and fellow women and fellow LGBTQ people.
All of us, yeah. Thank you for that, Barry. I just wanted to mention one thing before we do a little quick premiere and then get to the audience. And I know Garth and I have been just talking to you and listening to your wonderful stories, and you've been so eloquent and talking about your process and your art. And I want to get a chance for you and Anne to talk as well. We did notice a lot in the series they would use the same song. There's kind of universal themes. They use the same song for one scenario and then use it again later for completely different scenarios. It's kind of the way that pop songs are, kind of a little bit, right? Be something is missing in my life, and it'd be about earrings here, and then it'd be about a lost father here. And same with you know, Nightmare would be about a bad situation that was happening, some kind of fraud, and then it would be about drug abuse. The same exact song. So talk about that, about something is missing, and reusing songs on the universal themes.
Well, I mean, I think most of the best songs are universal, you know, in terms of what they're singing about, and they can be applied to a lot of different situations. If you think back to songs you love, if you try to, you can imagine them being in a dramatic situation where they can be very, very different. Each one can be very, very different. So you try to do that. You try to basically say something that is easily discernible and you could sort of take in, but that also applies to a very specific situation. What happened was, when I was called anyway, I think it was Jay called, Tom's son, we said, we're going to reuse some of the songs because we figured out we can do that. It's a nice thing for the songwriter, but it also means, as I said, we didn't get paid for the songs that we would have written in place of those. But that was like, we wrote an awful lot of songs for Jam, I think 130 or something like that, which is more than I've done for any other project. So no, My Little Penny I wrote more. Other than that.
Yeah. I mean, when we were doing the pre-calls, Barry said to everyone else, he said, something's missing in my contract instead of something's missing in my life, right? So yeah, that's the joke there. Are you ready, Barry, to talk about Black Beauty and talk about this premiere of this song that we're gonna play?
Yeah. I write for the musical theater, which is really my first passion. What's been great about writing for especially children's television is it allowed me to get paid and practice my craft, writing songs, so I got paid for them early on. The difference between writing for theater and writing for TV is that in TV they pay you up front. In most cases in theater, until the few that are, it's a very difficult business. The few that are hired to do something, and I've been hired to do stuff, generally you write on what they call spec, and you hope to get the show produced. This is a show that I've been writing on spec with a collaborator of mine, another female composer named Kathy Summer. And the reason I picked this song and was excited about it is because after we recorded it, I turned to my collaborator then and said, this is probably the closest to a Gem song I've ever written for any show. And you'll hear it that it is. The show is based on a classic book called Black Beauty about horses. A lot of people don't realize, but that book started the revolution to treat animals kindly and recognize that they're sentient creatures, which is something that I care about passionately also. And I think that might appeal to a lot of people out there who are Jem fans. But we're trying to get the word out about this show. Broadway musicals now, I talked earlier that there's sort of a full circle that now a lot of songs that people listen to are coming from Broadway now, which was not true for many years. And one of the things that producers look for are songs that are sort of out there already before the show ever debuts. And TikTok and stuff like that is like affecting that. I don't know a lot about these things, but I'm learning as we go. And one of the things we did a lyric video, the first one I've ever done, which you're going to see. And basically, when the guys called me to appear today, it gave us the reason to like get it done, the first one. And I've told my collaborator, who's also writes for a lot of rock groups and stuff like that, that it's really good if any of you are interested in the song that you do their own versions of it and put it on TikTok and everything else. That's how you get the word out. We want to get the word out about this song. So any way the Jem group can help, that'll be terrific. And if you have ideas, I know you can't write directly to me, but you can write to the JemCon 2021, right? And give me ideas about how we can get it around their universe.
Yeah. We'll connect you guys through JemCon Forever at Gmail. Just write us if you have questions for Barry that we don't get to today, or that you have some ideas about Black Beauty, what we can do with it, what's some awesome stuff we can do with that. But we'll play the clip now, and then we'll put the YouTube link in the chat as well, so you guys can watch it directly. Or anything else you want to say before we play it?
I was going to say, Black Beauty is about horses that are being mistreated. The horse that sings the song is Ginger, a famous character. In our story, in our scenario, she's not very impressed with the guy who joins their stable, which is the guy who's going to be Black Beauty. Then all of a sudden, he saves her and the other horses from dying in a fire, and she changes her mind about how she feels about him. And that's what this song is about.
Great setup. Okay, let's play it. Let's hear it.
Couldn't see my way to you, didn't feel the vibe. Something wasn't sitting right, I could not describe. Never dreamed that you could be leader of the tribe. But then there came that happy sound, and now I hear it all around. I hear your song, yeah, in a way I never heard it sung. I'm hearing bells, yeah, in a way they never have been wrong. I hear it proud, I hear it strong. I hear your song, yeah, I hear your song. Everything is making sense, everything feels right. Oil and water at the start, but now we two are tight. Seeing things I never saw in a different light. I thought your game was zero sum. Now I see where you're coming from. I hear your song, yeah, in a way I never heard it sung. I'm hearing bells, yeah, in a way they never have been wrong. I hear it proud, I hear it strong. I hear your song, yeah, I hear your song.
Thanks for playing that.
Wow, Barry, I hear your song. That's amazing. We all hear it. I saw a lot of stuff in the chat. I don't know if you saw everything. Everyone's loving it. Everyone
That's
feels a
great.
lot of Gem vibes, and think who's the singer on that song? She's amazing.
Her name is Debo, Debo or Deborah, really, Ray, and she's incredible. She went to the Berklee School of Music in Boston, which is a tremendous school. She just brought stuff to that song that we never even imagined. You were asking about people who can riff. There's an example of it. She just took that song and ran with it. And it was very exciting when we were recording it. Also interesting because we're on a Zoom, because of the pandemic. We actually produced it. She was up in Boston. She has her own studio, and she was doing the, as when you put a song together, you do line by line, and then you comp it and you put it together. Then our producer was down in New York, and I was down here in Florida, all at the same time during the recording session. So it was really sort of wild, but we had to do that because of the pandemic. But
like
she's
1985 all over again, right? It's kind of like 1985.
She's all over, by the way, in terms of TikTok, and so if you want to see more about her, because she's terrific. So we're promoting her as much as the show and the song.
That's awesome. So Anne, I want to give you a chance first before we go to questions. If you could stay a little longer, Barry, can you stay for 15, 20 minutes longer? Okay, great. And what did you think of the song, and what do you want to say to Barry?
Well, I think the song is quite wonderful. I'm wondering how you're going to do this. Is this going to be a live stage show?
That's the idea, yeah. They've had animals in Cats, they've had animals in Lion King, so the audiences are used to seeing animals on stage. We're not worried about that.
That's really wonderful. I love the story growing up. But also, I really wanted to hear everything you had to say, but I also wanted to say hello. See, 35 years. And you look and I loved, I think I wrote John Henry about this, that especially after we got our 20 seconds more, whatever it was, how, the irony, when you turn around, there would be always a moment, like in Pizzazz and Universal Appeal, she's saying, Universal Appeal, nothing on me, that I'm the brightest star in the fantasy, in my own mind's eye, I am the sky. And she has just such deep dreams. She wants to be acknowledged. She wants, and how you just took that for a moment and made us feel what she's feeling, not just her bravado, but and all of the songs I got that from you, that twist, in that moment, even in something like She's Got the Power, that moment.
My favorite song, by the way.
Yeah. She's got the power to create illusion, her mastery, no confusion, her mastery, no illusion. We just get that moment of why she's got the power, And I love that writing with you on all that, even though we never saw each other.
Probably it's why we were able to write so many songs so quickly.
Yeah, we yell at each other or anything. But the lyrics would come, and they were always so wonderful to work with. So,
well, thank you. And I love the Gem songs. So.
Wonderful too, not just as a composer, but as an arranger, to have the different layers. And if they weren't there in some of the songs, I would find a place to put them.
And sometimes, and everybody will appreciate this, you're writing very quickly. And as I said, when you tap into your unconsciousness, sometimes it's terrific and it creates those levels, which if you're lucky, the composer responds to, as Anne so often did. Sometimes I felt like I was repeating some ideas over and over again because they would get the same ideas songwriting. So what's terrific though is you listen to the songs, and each song is different. Even though sometimes the lyrics sort of repeat similar ideas, the songs don't, which is really terrific. That's pretty hard for 130 songs.
Different. There was in the beginning with the Misfits, there was a bit of a problem that every song was at the same tempo in the same key for the same singer, and I said to Joe, I have rabbits I can pull out of hats, lots of them, but much more unless we have more time. And that broke the time problem.
And they took the characters someplace different. So the same thing, how many times could you say I'm terrific, and I'm better than you? I mean, that's basically what we're being asked to say over and over and over again. So it's finding a different angle on it, which is. I
found that Pizzazz, they never picked my songs for Pizzazz for the first 10 songs or something, because I always wanted her to grow, because she had a lot of psychological material. She was basically mother and fatherless, and she needed acknowledgement from the world. Yeah. And she had a lot of deep stuff going on. And of course, Ellen's a terrific singer, but Pizzazz couldn't lose these things because she was a bad singer. She had to really have stuff to offer her. So I was happy with all that, but the extended time made a difference, I think, to all of us. Really.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You develop, it's called developing character, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
whether as a songwriter or as a lyricist or an actor, you need time to develop that. You know, if someone walks on stage or in a movie, you don't know everything about them from the first 3 seconds.
Right.
You make a judgment about them, but then you find out, oh, they have this issue, or, you know, their father left them when they were 3 years old, or, you know, that kind of thing. And that's the joy of writing, but sometimes it's hard to do it because there's also commercial stuff that you are dealing with. Like, we only have this amount of time to do it. We only have this amount of time we can animate. So, you know, it's all those things you're dealing with.
No excuses. We had to do it anyway. I found also the increased time allowed me, which I said to Joe, that this gives me everything's this fast tempo. I can do something funky. I can do, you know, I can do all different kinds of stylistic things because I did that, you know, and it's just, I wasn't able to do. I was kind of handcuffed before that. But I just want to tell you one thing. When we all had lunch, do you remember that? It was like 35 years
I
ago.
do, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. You showed up and you looked like Noel Coward. I mean, you looked so fabulous. You had a wonderful cat coat and an ascot, a wonderful scarf of some kind on.
Okay.
Broadway writer to me.
Broadway Barry, I guess that was bad.
Yeah, you did. It was just
That's
like, oh, he looks so fabulous. We were just a couple of tired songwriters.
That's what I feel now, like I'm a tired songwriter. So.
Are you or East Coast?
I'm in Florida, so I'm on the east coast of Florida now. I've also lived in I lived in St. Pete for 4 years.
Oh, right. You're in Sarasota.
Yeah. So my husband had a job there for 4 years. I got a taste of the West Side as well. But I prefer the East Side. But,
you do? Oh, I like Sarasota a lot.
Sarasota. I mean, I've been to Sarasota. I did a theater piece there a while back, but St. Petersburg is different than Sarasota. Different vibe.
Yeah, it's about 60 minutes away, but St. Pete is pretty hip.
In certain levels, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just, I have a lot of friends on this side from New York and Fire Island and the Hamptons, where I lived most of my adult life. So
I want to tell you though, it was just such a pleasure to work with your lyrics all the time. I mean,
I go back to these songs and I'm amazed that we turned them out as well as we did in the amount of time that we did.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever written as fast in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times when I was writing 3 lyrics a day. That's a lot.
Yes. I had that as an arranger and as a composer too.
I'm sure you were like
turned it out, but you know, those lyrics were so good that I did the arrangement from the words. The arrangement really comes, you know, tune, of course, it's for the words, but with the arrangement, sometimes it's a phrase you said that I had. My counterline automatically came to the phrases that you gave us, and you know. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the proof is in the pudding. Look at these faces that we're looking at. I mean,
yeah,
this amazes me. You know?
Yeah, I know.
But when I tell people, like, you know, I wrote this series almost 40 years ago, and there's all these fans yet. It's like staggering.
Right, and you know, I by the way, you probably knew Peter Matz and Larry Grossman and those people.
Peter Matz and I shared, that was my first job, and I shared an office with Peter Matz at the Carl Burnett Show.
Yeah.
My first 3 weeks until they found my office.
He took me into his wing when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
I grew up at all his sessions, and it was the gopher. It would be fun, you know. But well, it's
they're boring them all. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. We're gonna get you guys connected on email and Zoom, and I'll host it or whatever. You guys can have a whole catch up.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're your basically all of us. The music that you made together, we're your offspring. All of us on the call. So, like it or not, yeah.
Wonderful.
Ellen, do you want to chime in before we go to the audience for more questions? Anything you want to add as the singing voice who got to sing some of these awesome lyrics?
Hi there, Ellen. Talk.
If you want.
Yes. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Ellen.
I never had the pleasure to meet you, so I'm so glad I finally did.
I've been listening to you though for 35 years. So.
Okay, well that's good. So, but I love seeing you're a fabulous lyricist and writer, but equally I can see that you're a lovely human being. So that's even the cherry on top of the sundae.
Well, most days my husband will agree with you, not every day.
Well, yeah, so that's it for me. I'm kind of exhausted today. So
Well, thank you for your contribution to the series.
yeah, as you can hear in my voice, I'm a like little horse. Pizzazz is hoarse today.
Thanks for chiming in, Ellen. Yeah, that's one thing we found, Garth and I found from talking to Barry and just emailing back and forth with him. He's a really cool guy, and so we're so excited to introduce you to the JemCon universe, Barry. Glad to have you on board.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yeah,
I've been asked before, you know, and I never have agreed to come to one of the conventions because, though it's hard to tell from today, I'm a shy person, and you know, don't really like to get up in front of people and talk a whole lot. This is the perfect forum, though.
Yeah.
So if we have this again, I'll be happy to join.
2 dimensions. Yeah, you get your own parameters. That's kind of how I am as well. Cool. Thank you, Ellen. So Evelyn, you've had your hand up first. You want to come off mute and ask a question?
I can deal with the order, John Henry, because
okay,
there's people that have been chatting with me and everything. But I just want to say, if you have a question, please let me know. Raise your hand. I have an order based off of how I've received them. We can go until 2:30 hard stop. But first up, I have Damon. Damon, to come off of mute. Our Scott Bakula.
Well, I just wanted to say quickly, I was able to say this last year to Ellen and to Anne, but Barry, it is a pleasure to meet you, and I just wanted to thank you all for just your inspiration. And I don't know, I mean, you know, John Henry has said it, that how many people you've inspired. It's no surprise or secret that I went into musical theater based on Jem. And here's what was surprising to me is that when I had the honor and privilege to do Romance at Arizona State University, I didn't know that was you. I didn't know that you were that Barry Harman. So that was, I think, serendipitous to kind of look back and go, oh my God, what influenced me growing up, and that song styling of going into musical theater and then having to do your work and inspiring me. And I booked my first national tour listening to Now on my Discman, and to pump me up and to psych me out. So thank you. And that's really all I wanted to say is because of your inspiration, I am who I am today because of that. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Just maybe laugh because you said you didn't know I was that Barry Harman. My husband, I dated for about 6 months, and he's done it to musical theater. So a friend of his said, "What, you know, are you seeing anybody?" He goes, "Yeah, this guy, his name is Barry Harman." He goes, "You're dating Barry Harman?" He goes, "Why?" He goes, "Well, he wrote Romance, so you know that?" And I had not really told him at that time what I did. And it was like 6 months before that. So I don't promote myself enough. But anyway, next question. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Damon. And Barry, I just want to warn you, this JemCon tends to be a long train of compliments. So I hope you're ready for even more. And next up, I have Christian. Please come off of mute and ask your question.
Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christian.
Good to meet you. Thank you for the work that you've done. Your songs have touched a lot of us. My question is about, and this is going to surprise so many people, the Stingers. There's a line in Believe, Don't Believe where it says, don't believe in the fantasy. And then there's a line in Destiny that says, all the plans and schemes are more than fantasy. Was the use of the word fantasy a reference to her being named Fantasy before she was Rapture, or was it just something that was...
No, it wasn't about the character. They wouldn't have wanted that. So I'm trying to connect with that. And again, the disclaimer that I didn't, maybe I said it before. This is 40 years ago, remember? So it's
sure.
But it wasn't. I wasn't supposed to refer to characters specifically in the lyrics because they wanted to be more have universal appeal, as it were.
Right.
So I really wasn't writing about it. So you don't hear a lot of songs about, you know, where she says her name. Other than in the commercials, Jem is my name thing. So in answer to that, I'd say specifically that it wasn't referring to the character.
Okay. The reason that the question came to my mind was because in the Stingers themes, they're all named, you know, in some way, and very
Well,
clever.
they were introducing, you know, those characters came later, right?
Right, and very clever. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Christian, for that. Always repping the Stingers. We have you and Alana always to depend on. So the next question I have from across the pond, Elizabeth, come off of mute.
Hi. So I have two questions. First of all, did you and Anne like work in the same room at the same time on these songs?
Absolutely not.
And the second question is, do you have a personal favorite, your most
Of the song. We didn't work in the same room. We generally, when you write songs, that would be how it would work. But in television, often because the schedule is so intense, the composers did their thing, the writers did their thing, and the lyricist did his thing. So it was not in the same room, which is sometimes I think that's sad because we didn't get to, because I think on certain moments we might have gone even beyond what we did, but somehow we sort of channeled into each other, and it seems to have worked out okay. My favorite song on the whole show, I think, is "Who Is He Kissing?" I think that's the one I like, because the reason I did it, because it's the first time Jem sort of dealt with her real issue, where, you know, she was lying to this kid, to this guy that supposedly was in love with her, and I like that we were able to go into it, and so that resonated for me for quite a lot. Still does.
Thank you for your. Thank you so much for that question, Elizabeth. And "Who Is He Kissing?" As you can tell from people's reactions, is a lot of people's favorite song. But the next question that I have, and this is someone Jem inspired her to pick up guitar. Katie, come off of mute. Ask your question for Barry.
Yeah, I'm so glad you weren't there for that earlier, because I've only been playing for a short period of time and I don't know what I'm doing. First off, for the compliment train, thank you for being a part of my childhood and making it amazing. I know for you, it was just a job, but for me, it was wonderful and you made my childhood great. So thank you for that. My question is, did you have a particular group you liked writing for better than the other, or were they all the same?
They were all the same. I mean, at first it was more fun to write for, you know, the bad girls. So that was sort of fun. I get in the end, when Jem had some chances to not just be, as I said, more what I call the kumbaya songs, but you know, say something or really get into her own issues. She's the one I was rooting for, and I think the audience was too. So I enjoyed those songs. I really did like when there were sort of problem songs, you know, when someone really had an issue and we were able to dive into that. And that's the most fun in writing, when you try to capture someone's character and put her into a song. So they all had that at certain points. So you know, it's like asking someone who their favorite child is. It's hard to answer that question.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for that question, Katie. And next up, let's go to Evelyn. Evelyn, come off of mute. What's your question?
All right. So just like Katie, I'm going to add to the compliment train. Thank you so much for writing the lyrics to literally everyone's favorite songs. So yeah. And I apologize if you hear the noise behind me. It's Sunday football and I can't change that. So my question is, what's the hardest song you've ever written, Jem or non-Jem wise, just in general?
The hardest song I've ever written. Wow. I know. I wrote with a very famous composer named Burton Lane, who's from way before everybody's time. He wrote songs like, well, he wrote, in terms of Broadway, he wrote Finian's Rainbow and On a Clear Day You Could See Forever with Alan J. Lerner, who wrote My Fair Lady. These are old shows. Burton Lane was from the early 20s. He was selling songs the way they used to sell songs, where you would go into a publisher and they would sit at the piano and Burton would sing that song and then sing it 3 times, because by the time he finished, the publisher would be able to know the melody. He gave me a song to write for a project that we did together. There was a musical he had done with Alan J. Lerner called Carmelina that was on Broadway. I wrote additional lyrics when They decided to do a London version because Burton and Alan J. Lerner did not get along. And he gave me a really involved musical thing to write. And we finally did actually turn it into a really good song, but the show was never, they never produced it in London, so you would not have heard it. It's called Sorry As I Am, but it was a tough song to write, the hardest one I ever wrote.
Wow, cool. Thank you.
Sure, long-winded answer.
Thank you for that question, Evelyn. And next up, we have Elaine. Elaine, come off of mute. What's your question?
Hey, Barry.
Hi.
I definitely want to keep the compliment train going. Thank you so much, and Ellen as well, for all the music. It has touched everyone here's lives so much. I did want to say that we are very eternally grateful for that. My question was, as someone who's musically inclined, do you have any tips for aspiring songwriters? I mean, I don't think I'll ever get to your depths and breadths, but and that's for Anne or Ellen if they want to chime in. They certainly don't have to, but
What I tell writers all the time, or people who want to write, is do it every day and write what you believe in. I often get from parents who want to, my children have written this and I think they're really good and everything else. You think they have a future. And I said, the future is there if they want it. If you want to be a professional, basically you have to keep at it. If it's looking for only good feedback, although this is terrific, it's, raised my ego, but being in this business means sometimes you're going to get that and sometimes they're just going to shut you down really badly. And you have to be able to keep going because you love doing what you do. If you can't connect with what you love, it really won't matter whether you sell anything or do anything. Some of the greatest artists in the world have never sold their paintings. I have things that I think are some of my best stuff that I've ever written that no one cares about, and other stuff they said, oh, that was okay, and it was successful. You just never know. Find what you care about and put that into your work is what I would say. That's the best way to do it.
Thank you.
I forget who said, it was just Katie, I guess, said, it's just a job. Yes, it was just a job, but I long ago decided that I was only going to do stuff that I cared about. Part of the reason I went into children's television is because I felt it's important to get messages out to kids that might help them. Television helped me growing up, just navigating your way. And I think that's what life is about. So that's why a lot of us go into this business.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And I think Anne wants to chime in as well.
I did want to say that I learned from somebody very special a long time ago that if you're writing, you're writing for yourself. You have to please yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
If you can touch one more person, then you've done something. So write for yourself and love what you write and let it go with that. And if you wind up in the professional arena, I like Barry, have had some wonderful pieces that they didn't pick and competitions that I lost. But you know what? I didn't care. I liked what I did. I got to write that song.
Yeah.
That's got to start from there. It can't start from comparing yourself to someone else or worried about a competition, right? And love what you put out. And if I didn't like something I did, nobody ever heard it. Because I had to please myself first. So love what you do.
Hi, Elaine. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Hi. Well, you got two wonderful educational or inspirational messages from Barry and Anne. And what can I say? Barry's do it every day. I wish I could do that, Barry. That's really disciplined and good. But I'm not of that. I'm a singer who also writes, so singers are so what can I say? I just say, like, let yourself open up, open your heart, let your and try not to judge yourself and enjoy the process and just kind of let yourself go and don't be too judgmental because that'll stop whatever you're trying to get out. So just like kind of let it flow, which is sometimes, and I guess maybe doing it every day is helpful for that actually. And have fun. So it should be, even though it may not be fun, but it should be like, it's so much better to, when you're writing or is that you're enjoying the experience. I was in an acting class once. This is good. So this was the act. Seek the joy of your own experience. Mm-hmm. So, which is, that's good. What else do we have? You know, either it's joy or it's so.
Thank you guys, all of you.
Wow, I bet I don't know why I'm crying now, but listen, this weekend we have voice acting lessons from Sue Blue, and today we have songwriting lessons from Barry Harman and Brian and Ellen Bernfeld. So you're welcome, everyone. So given the time, I'm going to, if you have not raised your hand, tough luck. So we have 5 more questions. So just try to ask them quickly if you can, so that we can give our guests a time to spend their Sunday doing whatever they want to do. That's not this. But Davide, I have a question. I have your hand raised, so please unmute yourself so I can stop crying.
No, go ahead. Hi again, Barry. So you talked about how Broadway is going full circle, bringing back songs in the pop charts, and we talked about how some gem songs are good for different situations. So regardless that the fact that "Who Is a Kissing" is your favorite song, what do you think it's the more liftable song? That's what Howard Ashman used to call them, songs that go outside the show or outside the Disney movie he was writing, a song that could or should go outside of Gem and have a life of its own.
Good question. Good question. I'm just looking at a song list here that I took before. Let me see if I. This is a song, "She Makes an Impression," which is actually, I think, was done as a commercial song, a commercial for the dolls. But I went back and listened to it. It says something. It's one of the songs I wanted to spotlight. I don't know if I could pick one out of 135. Let me think. Oh, "I Got My Eye on You." That's the other one.
Yeah.
That's probably the one. "I've Got My Eye on You" is I think, one that could step outside of Gem easily. That would probably be my answer. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Let's put it on the pop charts, somebody.
Please.
Thank you so much, Davide.
Ann and I would very much like that.
Say something. Can I speak?
Oh, of course. You never have to ask Anne Bryant, please.
Beyonce, when she hired her all-woman band, should have done "She's Got the Power." Beyonce and Justin Timberlake and Jennifer Hudson, they all grew up on Gem. Yep. And it was such a missed opportunity that for Hasbro to have not done that. And I think a duet, one of those kind of like Roberta Flack and Peabo Bryson duet type of things that would be romantic was "I Can't Get My Love Together." I think that could have been.
I love the bridge of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very lovely. And so I think those two for sure. And I agree with you on "I Got My Eye on You." All right, I'm off now.
And Brian, everyone. So all the way, I think it's near Amsterdam, Rotterdam, come off of mute and ask your question.
Hello, Barry. Thank you for joining, and really cool to see Ellen and Anne also. I have a question for you. Do you find yourself humming or singing a Gem song like most of us do, probably? Like, it happens to me like 5 times a day. So does that ever happen to you? And what song is it?
Depends on the situation. Also, I guess I have around 900 songs on the ASCAP survey, so I have a lot to choose from. But sometimes a situation will arise, and "Who Is He Kissing?" No, I wouldn't do that one. I'm trying to think. Sure. I mean, they don't happen as regularly because I don't keep just those songs in my head, but I've definitely had moments where all of a sudden I'll start doing it, and either my friends or my husband will look at me like, "What are you singing?" And I said, "What's from Gem? This refers to this." It's the same situation. So sure it happens, yes, but some of them are too private that I won't share in this group.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I hope to see you at a JemCon in the future. It would be fantastic.
You mean in person? Well, if I'm still living it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you much, Stefan. So I have 2 more questions, and then Garth, John Henry, you can close the session out. But first, let's go to Jacques. Jacques, unmute yourself with your question.
Okay, hello, Barry.
Hello.
Great, thank you for your work. I would like to know if time available was an issue for creating, like how much ahead, since you were at the beginning of the process, how much ahead you were for creating the songs before the series aired?
Wow. I don't remember the exact time thing. I do remember that it was very, very fast. And part of the reason for that is that in order to get the stuff done by the animation studios, which we usually were in, I think, Japan at the time, most of them anyway, we had to be way ahead of the game. So we were, the whole period, and correct me if I'm wrong, but how long were we working on Gem total? Do you remember? I mean, the whole time period?
How long did we work on Gem?
Yeah, I mean, the time period that went from beginning to end. I mean, was that over a year and a half, maybe? Or
No, it's about 2 years.
was years? Okay.
I wrote the theme in March of '85. Then it went on in air, I think, in around September of '85.
Okay.
And then we hit the pedal, you know, and and we would get also like 10 of them to do. Suddenly it'd be 10 episodes, and then there would be time for breathing, and then it would be another 9 or something. So yeah, and it had to be you had to go first for us to do the songs and me to do the arrangements and then get it to the animator. So it was a very tight schedule.
It was, yeah. But the lead time was dependent upon the animation studios and how much time they needed in order to animate the songs. And
too.
So that sometimes changed. All of a sudden, you're writing, no, we have to have these 3 songs by tomorrow and needs the lyrics now.
Yeah.
I actually wrote, I don't remember which songs they were, but I was flying out to California for a meeting, trying to pilot. And I had to write 6 songs on the plane in those 5 hours, because when I got off the plane, they didn't even want me to go, but I had to go and do it and deliver them. So it can sometimes really crazy.
Yeah. So did you think that maybe afterwards some song I would have done it another way if I had more time?
Well, of course. I mean, basically, I always look at my work critically, and you said, yeah, I could have done better on that line. I could have done it, but that's just the big. And but even songs that I've taken, weeks on, I've had that with songs I've written for the musical theater. I'll go back to them and go like, oh, well, that was sort of a cheesy line. Should have done better on that. But good writers are generally critical of the work, even though we're very proud of what we do.
Okay. Well, I'm very proud of what you did. Thank you very much for your work. You and Anne and Ellen also.
Thank you so much, Jacques. And the privilege of the last question goes to one of my favorite people that I'm proud of. Alana, come off of mute.
Hi, I'm off of mute. Hi, Barry. I wanted to thank you so much for being here. I think I speak on behalf of everyone. It's a true honor. And I also want to echo Stefan's thoughts. And I really hope that you can come back to another JemCon. But in regards to my question is more of a comment. And I know that a lot of people had inspiration from all the lyrics that you've done in the past, and it shaped them as a young person. But for me, as an adult, one line from your song, Fun to Be Scared, really spoke to me. And the line, a creaky door means fun galore. Such a throwaway line that you delivered, to me, was just so random and fun. And I just wanted to let you know that even though you have lines that are very meaningful and inspirational, sometimes political, even just such a throwaway line like that is just, to me, it was wonderful. And I just love that line so much because it's random and fun. And I know it sounds just ridiculous, but that's what I loved about it, because it was ridiculous. So thank you, because it just meant a lot to me specifically, that specific line. I'm sure, I don't even know if you remember it, but I just love a creaky door means
You
fun.
said it, then I said, that sounds like a line I would write. I made most of my living as a comedy writer.
Okay.
So that I brought hopefully a sense of comedy to some of the songs.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. That's what I loved.
That's
So
good.
thank you.
Thank you for enjoying it.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun galore.
Okay, I'm gonna have to shrink my head back down to a normal size for this session.
You're welcome to feel the Gem love. That's what this is all about. Please let your ego let it rise. You deserve it. This is here to bask in the love. We're here to bestow the love upon you. This is the time to glow. So we encourage that for our
You see me
guests.
blushing, I hope so.
We want that, please. It looks great on you, that color.
Thank you. I love your look too.
Thank you, Alana. So John, I guess we have to close it out now, right? Okay,
Huzzah.
so yeah.
I want to have a special message from JemCon founder Liz Pemberton. She just wants to extend her thanks and appreciation to Barry for being here.
Glad to have been here.
Great.
Everybody for being so nice.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to attack me. I didn't know what this was. This is great.
We prepared you all right, Barry.
Yes, you did. Thank you
So
very
yeah, Garth, I'll let you say the final farewells to Barry, and then I'll do the plug for the next session. But yeah, Barry, it's been great getting to know you. I hope we remain friends offline. Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much. It's been my honor. And Garth, anything you want to add?
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate your candor and your compassion, and then just the warmth and humanity you shared with us today, because that is what the JemCon feeling is all about, and the show you worked on, and that resonates with us to this day. And thank you to John, Henry, and John. Thank you so much for helping this become an amazing panel for everyone.
Thank you, Garth. You did such a great job. That's the other thing I wanted to say. You did such a great job, Garth, as the moderator, getting us through so much material, getting so much wonderful information from Barry in that short time that we had. And yeah, thank you again, Barry. Thanks, Ann and Ellen, for coming. And thank you all, the rest of you all, for coming and being so enthusiastic about the special, special person in our universe and who's now part of our family in Barry. So thank you. We're going to close out the Zoom here, and we have our next guest at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So that's about 24 minutes from now. And that's Sharon Nettle, who did the art for the boxes for the Gem doll. She's a great artist, been working ever since Gem and before that. And she's going to be a lot of fun as well. So we'll see you all in 24 minutes. And special guest, thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.